about how Jesus saved me and how I was saved from multiple things, from addiction, from anxiety, depression, being lost. A lot of things that I'm going to touch up on this video. I'm going to try not to make it super long, but I just want to make this video. It took me a long time, to be honest, to make this video, because I feel like it felt unreal at first. Like, I can't believe all this happened. But because of the grace of God and because he knew that he needed to save me, and I prayed and prayed and prayed, and I wanted to be saved so badly. But it took me a long time, which I'm going to go through everything and my relationship with God and where I'm at now. So I knew God growing up. So I grew up Catholic/Christian. My mom was very religious and still is very religious. So I grew up in a Catholic school my entire life. So I knew God. But did I know God? No. I was very much living in the world. I was very much living for my own pleasures, living for myself, living for other people, being part of the world, partying, clubbing, drinking, and I'll get into drinking. And I was very insecure growing up. I didn't really have much resources growing up overall. Like, I grew up very humbly. I wasn't really thinking about God, except like if I was in church and I had to, because we had Sunday mass, growing up Catholic, it was very much surrounded by me. But was I truly living for God? No, absolutely not. I was just doing my own thing. Didn't even think about it until I was about 18, like going into college, and I was exposed to more of the real world. And I was going into the real world with a lot of insecurities, and nursing school really brought up anxiety for me. Like, I developed anxiety from nursing school. It was a very stressful time in my life, very much so. I wasn't relying on alcohol heavily though at that time. It was more of like, yeah, I'd have a drink here and there, but it wasn't really a big deal because I was so stressed about school. And I didn't really have a social life during nursing school. So again, my life at the time was really just about living in the world, focusing on school, focusing on trying to get things, even though I had the influence from my mom, who would pray for me and ask God, for me to get into like the program. And my mom was actually a big part of me getting into nursing school. She prayed heavily for me, and I still believed in God, but I just didn't have a relationship with him still around this time. So from there, I was able to finish nursing school, and this is when life got me. I would say the world got me for years, since being age of 23, and now I'm 30, so it's a long time. So this is really where I'm so grateful that God saved me from this. The anxiety definitely got worse, especially being a new nurse. I worked in oncology, med-surg oncology, and seeing a lot of like young cancer patients, dying all the time really got to me mentally, and I would live in fear, and I developed this like hypochondriac type of mentality of constant thoughts. I thought it was normal at first. I'd ask other nurses like, yeah, do you feel this type of way? Like, do you ever feel like you're gonna die or that's gonna happen to you too? And one of the nurses was like, yeah, no, I mean, sometimes, but I just have a drink and it just kind of goes away. And at that time, I didn't really have a support system. I was still single, very young mindset. So I did that. I was like, okay, I'll just have a glass, whatever. I'll have a glass of wine when I feel anxious. That was the first, the first of many. I started with that. And it just kind of developed and continued on. Stressful shifts go right into just going to happy hours and drinking. Like, that was the normal, and it still is very much so for nurses because we see a lot. But yeah, I heavily resorted on that. It wasn't too bad though this time. I was still like 23, 24, just going to happy hours, just getting glasses of wine and whatever, just whatever alcohol is after. Started traveling more. I was making more money, so I was able to travel. And again, I just had this mindset of like, God was like in the background. I'm like, yeah, I'll pray. I'll say, the Our Father here and there, but no relationship with God. My higher powers were on men and pleasing people and alcohol and living for the world and partying. I was heavily into partying from 24 to about like 27, I would say, 27, 28. And I used that over time as an escape from my anxiety. I never really dealt with the anxiety that I had felt especially when it came to like the health anxiety and the constant racing thoughts all the time about thinking about dying and like just hypochondriac. I just kind of let it be. I just let it be. I would tell my friends about it. They would laugh and be like, okay, I was a little anxious, you know? And I was just like, okay, yeah, you know, I guess that's normal. And then I got into a relationship, and we're no longer together, but my ex at the time too kind of saw like changes in me because he met me when I was 24 and he was a little older. So during that time too, he kind of saw the progression of my alcohol intake. And I think it really started because of people I was hanging out with, which I will not name, but I think that and just the influence of, okay, I need to use alcohol to help me with my anxiety. Because at this point, I'd say by 25, 26, I was living with a roommate, and, you know, again, she was also a nurse and the same kind of mindset. And I'm not saying obviously that nurses, we all have a problem at all. Will not say that. But this is for me personally, this added on to my eventually being addicted to alcohol for my anxiety, which I'll get to. So this is just me. And I just kind of, again, lived life for, you know what, yeah, let's have a glass of wine, turned into a bottle, and we just kind of be like, yeah, whatever. And I wouldn't drink every day. I'd be like, I only drink on the weekends. I drink on my days off. So that was definitely a big deal for me at the time. Like, I really just wanted to like make the best of things and just go out and party all the time because I wasn't dealing with the anxieties of life. So then I moved back in with my parents, and then I moved in with my boyfriend at the time. And I was working in New York at the time, and I moved back to New Jersey, and I wasn't really thinking about it. You know, I was still drinking. I was drinking with my sister and my mom, and, you know, just kind of being like, yeah, whatever, like just having a glass of wine here and there. COVID time comes. We'll say about like 2019. Excuse me. I need to drink some water. Meanwhile, I was still dealing with the anxiety. The anxiety was 100% still there. And I was just masking it, still masking it with alcohol, masking it with going out, masking it with partying. I was running away. That's pretty much what I was doing. I was running away from anxiety and constant thoughts, which COVID times did not help. Especially being a nurse during COVID on the East Coast when we were the epicenter. Let me tell you, that brought my anxiety through the roof. I was newly single. I was in a kind of toxic relationship type of thing, and I was newly living by myself. I've never lived by myself before. And it's funny because right before everything shut down in March, my birthday was around. I just turned 28 and I was like, yeah, this is great. You know, I can go out, I can go drinking, I can meet people. I'm newly single, hot girl summer. That was my whole mentality in the beginning of 2020. And how I was wrong. And I can look back 2 years later and be grateful for this time. But I will tell you, that was my first time I've ever had a panic attack. That was the first time I just was not able to go to work sometimes due to anxiety. I went to see a psychiatrist at the time because I was like, you know what? Like, let me see if I can take medications for this. But before the medications, I was drinking a lot. Oh gosh, like I didn't know how to deal with myself. I was newly single. I was after a 3-year relationship. I was by myself, living alone, which I've never lived alone in my whole life. And COVID happened, so everything shut down. So you know what I did? I went to the liquor store that was right across the street. And I'd be like, okay, it's fine, whatever. I'm just gonna have a glass of wine. It would turn into a bottle. And it didn't always turn into a bottle. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. But it turned into a bottle a good amount of times. And I just kind of let it be. I'd go to work a little bit hungover because of all the things I was seeing when it came to COVID at that time. It was a traumatic experience for me. And I didn't know how to let it out. And it was funny because at the same time, our hospital was giving like EPS, like this, I'm sorry, it's like a employee mental, so it's pretty much like they give you like free therapy. So I took it, and I was talking to a therapist at the time, and she kind of told me like, yeah, I can cut back a little bit on the alcohol. Cause I told her like, yeah, saw all these people died today. So I had a glass of wine that turned into like a whole bottle. And my choice was always red wine. And she'd be like, yeah, I think you should kind of cut it back. And she was never the first one to talk about cutting it back. My ex would tell me, I've had friends that would be like, yeah, you should kind of control it. Like, I think you kind of go overboard sometimes. I was like, no, I'm good. And I would try to control it. I could never control it, of course. And yeah, 2020 was the year I really experienced that. And I think 2019, that definitely too, especially when I was newly single. I was going out, I was partying almost every single night. I was literally going to work. I would party until 2 in the morning and then wake up and go to work at like 7 in the morning. That's how much I was running away. And I look back now and it's just going to continue on. So after that, I always had this thought about being a travel nurse, and I knew I wanted to go to California at the time. And it was like a fleeting thought. I was like, I should do it. Maybe I should do it. Maybe I should not. And I just kept going back and forth. And actually, I skipped a part. I'm sorry. So going back to the psychiatrist, because after I had 2 panic attacks, one which was so severe that I almost I felt like I needed to go to the hospital. My thoughts could not stop. I was literally nonstop. I just kept going, thinking about dying, thinking about, is this going to happen to me? Am I going to get COVID? And it was just this OCD type of thinking, and I couldn't stop. And the only way I was able to stop myself is by drinking or by being out with friends, not being alone. Because whenever I was alone, I couldn't stop my thoughts. So the psychiatrist told me that he diagnosed me with panic disorder and generalized anxiety disorder, and also some health anxiety. And then he prescribed me Lexapro, which is an antidepressant. So in my head, I was like, okay, this is going to help me. This is going to help me stop my thoughts. So I took 10 milligrams. It was a pretty big dose for me. I'm sensitive to meds. And it was a little too much. So I felt zombie-ish But then I ended up taking 5. And I was on Lexapro for a year. I still drank. You're not supposed to drink on Lexapro. Still drank. And it helped with the thoughts, but it didn't help fully with the anxiety, especially when I would wake up in the morning and I'd feel hungover and then a little groggy because I took my Lexapro while I was drinking, So it's a lot of stuff that at the time I thought it was normal. I'm yeah, I could still drink though. I could still have a bottle. And on top of drinking consecutively a lot, I was still not eating well. I was eating a lot of junk food. I was stress eating, and I put on 30 pounds at the time. And I was newly just what is happening to me? Okay, this is not me. I can't fit into my jeans anymore. I'm what is happening? I was okay, once COVID died down a little bit, when things opened back in June, July, I was let me start dating. And I did. And I was just kind of doing that. And it still didn't make me happy. And I was still anxious. I was you know what? I need to leave. I think it's just New Jersey. I got to get out of here. So I got my California license, my travel nursing license. I took a travel job and I went to Northern California. It didn't make anything better. I thought that moving to California was going to make things so much better, and that I was going to be fun. I'm going to make new friends. I'm going to do this and that. I'm going to lose all this weight. I'm going to be good. 2021, we were going to get it too. So once I got to California in October of 2020, COVID was bad here. So I'm still in California. So it shut down. Everything shut down. So again, the trauma of not being released. And let me tell you, God was nowhere in this. I didn't think about God not once. I thought about him maybe once or twice, and I would say the Lord's Prayer, and that's it. I would never wake up, or I would pray and say, thank you, God, for waking me up. That's it. Or God, just please guide and protect me as I drive home. That's it. It was never in-depth prayer or getting to know God. So it is just mind-blowingly different, especially Northern California compared to New York with diversity was a big culture shock for me. I was wow, this is very different, very expensive, all this stuff, so just kind of thinking about those things. And being a travel nurse too, I didn't know anyone. I knew one person who I'm no longer friends with, but I knew her. And it was just a dark time for me, super dark. The alcoholism was just full blown. It was full blown. I was drinking a bottle of wine almost every day because that was my only way I knew to cope. Hooking up with people because I thought that would maybe make me happy. And then the anxiety turned into depression because I didn't know anyone. My family was all the way across the country. My best friends were across the country. So this is going in from 2020 into 2021. Then I moved from San Jose to another area of Northern California, and I was there for almost 6 months. And I moved hospitals as well. And I did make friends, and it still didn't solve the void. There was a void that I was running away from, and I was still trying to figure it out with alcohol. I was just even that, maybe this will help me. And it's funny because none of it did. And I can look back now and really think about how deep I went into my depression. Oh gosh, my depression was severe, real, and I was still on Lexapro at this time, so it wasn't as severe until I got off of it in May. And it was like, because I was on a trip to Miami, and I was like, I'm gonna stop taking Lexapro. I said, and that was when I started to realize the thoughts of God. I will never forget, there was one time I drank a whole bottle of wine and a half by myself in my apartment that I was living in. The next morning, I had the severe anxiety, I had a panic attack, I was crying, and that was the first time. This was around like May or June of last year. And I cried out to God. I said, God, I can't do this. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I feel like I can't stop the cycle. I cannot stop the cycle. I'm going out with these people. I'm drinking. I'm getting drunk. All these things. I'm like, I can't stop. Why? And I'll never forget, I got this sense of like this goosebump feeling. And it was a feeling of like, this is temporary. Like, this is going to be temporary. But I ignored it, of course. And I continued to drink, and I continued to party, and I continued to hook up with guys and talk to as many guys as I could at this time, because these were my ways of trying to fill in the void that I was experiencing. And it wasn't until I moved to the Upper Bay, where I'm at now, that I started to think about God more. And I really think it was because I realized that alcohol wasn't helping me. I was running away from my problems, and I finally realized it. Also, therapy helped me too. I also started therapy. I started therapy in February of that year, but I still was going back and forth. I was still drinking. I was still kind of going back and forth when it came to some things. And then I took my sobriety seriously. I said, okay, I have a problem. Let me take a break for a little bit and let me not drink. But I was going off of my own willpower. And then I also got into New Age, and New Age was big for me, like manifestations. I tried to start doing that and yoga, and I didn't really believe in crystals. Crystals always rubbed me the wrong way, so I never really got into that. But the affirmations and manifestations, yeah. And tarot card readings and psychics, I started doing a lot of that. And it really increased my anxiety more and brought me more distant from God, because I felt like I needed these answers and I wasn't getting them from God. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it, take it in my own hands. And I'm going to just do a tarot card reading on Etsy, or I have a psychic that I had. And I'm like, I'm just going to call her up and see what she thinks about this guy or my life and where I'm going. It's so funny now when I look back. I really put all my hopes and trusts into the psychics and the tarot cards and all of it, the manifestations, and trying to make me my own God and being able to do things for myself. So end of 2021, severely depressed still, overweight, trying to figure out how can I make myself happy? How can I bring happiness to myself, right? And the first thought I had was pray. I don't know what it was. It was another night. This is back in like November, December, hungover, up in my bed, just couldn't get out of the cycle of just constantly drinking. I'm telling you, at this point, I was like definitely alcoholic. I was drinking a lot. And especially when I was hanging out with people, I'd drink even more to just compensate for it. And I would always wake up sick the next morning, throwing up, sick. And then 5 o'clock comes around and I feel normal again. So I tried AA. I tried other methods of just, maybe it's just me, like I have an addiction problem. It runs in my family. I got a sponsor, all of that. It still wasn't enough for me. I was still going back and forth with my sobriety. And I'll never forget, it was New Year. January of this year is when God came into my life, because 2021 was the lowest time of my life. There were weeks that I couldn't get out of bed. I had to force myself to get out of bed just to take a shower and brush my teeth. And when I felt like that, I was like, you know what? I might as well just drink. This is going to help me this will make me feel better. And I was drinking at this point to just numb the void that I was feeling, because I was trying to fill that void with anything. I was trying to fill that void with alcohol, with men, with friends, with just people, just all these things, vacations and party. And I still felt empty. I still felt empty until this year. And it's funny because even in January, I was still doing the psychics and tarot cards, the manifestations I was kind of slowly dwindling on. Yoga I never got into fully. That was God protecting me. But at this time, it was in January, and I was on TikTok, out of all places, TikTok. And I watched this one girl who I still watch to this day. and she was on live and she just spoke to me. I felt like she spoke to me, and she was talking about how God wants you back and he wants you to be saved. Like he needs you back. Like the tarot cards, like all the things that you're doing are not going to bring you happiness. And I started crying when I was watching it, because I was like, this is what I've been missing. This was back in January. I'm like, this is what I've been missing, but I was still in bondage. I didn't know about what repentance meant and being saved. So even though I knew in January, okay, God, like this is what I need, I was able to be in God's presence for about a week, 2 weeks max. And I went back to drinking, and I went back to what I was doing. And I went on this roller coaster of, well, I don't know if I can do this. Can God forgive me? Because I'm still drinking and I'm still partying and I'm in the world, versus what God had in store for me. And on my 30th birthday, something told me, I didn't know what it was, that I will never drink again, that I will never take a sip of alcohol ever again. And I didn't believe it. I was like, okay, whatever. I don't think this is true. And I continued. So then still was like liking guys that weren't good for me, trying to figure out, like what my purpose is. I was doing good on TikToks when I was making all these things about empaths and stuff like that. And I still really didn't have God's full attention. I felt like God was there. I knew he was there, but I felt like I was disappointing him, because I was still being a part of the world. And I was still watching this girl, and I started watching things on TikTok about Christian. And, I kind of changed my whole TikTok to that, to more Christian based versus manifestations and like affirmations and new age stuff. And found the same girl spoke to me again. And this time I was also watching Isaiah Salvador, because somebody wrote in her live, like, oh, you need to watch Isaiah Salvador videos. And I was like, oh, who's that? And I Googled him. And after Googling him and listening to his message and the way I felt, and after he prayed for his audience, I was bawling, crying. I knew that what I was missing was the love of God. What I was missing was God. And that was the first time, I'm still grateful to this day. That was the first time I truly realized that I'm filling these voids. I'm filling the voids with every single thing possible. And I'll still feel empty if I didn't have the presence of God. And I had so many spirits and I had so many things in me, anxiety still, depression, fear, all of it. And I was watching one of his deliverance videos, and I also follow this other TikTok girl who does deliverances as well. And they were just saying prayers and stuff. And I truly believed with all of my heart that I wanted to be delivered, and I wanted to repent for my sins, and I wanted to be clean, and I wanted to live for God. End of April was the first time I truly felt peace. I felt anxiety being lifted off of. I felt God's presence on me. God's love, his eternal love, which makes me emotional, on me. And I got into my word and I asked God, show me what you need me to do in order to be a servant to you. What am I supposed to do in this world? The desire to drink, gone. I have not had a drink, and it's still relatively new. It will be almost a month, and I have not had a drink. I have no desire to drink. The desires now of my heart have been in God. And I've been watching his videos. I've been praying. I have my journals here, and I'm going to make more videos of what exactly I do when it comes to my prayer life. But I am telling you, God and Jesus is the only thing who saved me. He saved me. And I will be forever grateful. I will sing, I will worship, I will pray every day, and I will tell everyone every single day how much he saved my life. If you knew me back then and knew me now, totally different people. And I'm so forever grateful to still be on fire for him and to want to live this life and to be present with him. And he wants to do the same for you. If you are struggling with sin and depression and anxiety and you've tried everything, have you tried God? Have you tried? Because when you do, you will never go back. The peace you feel, the peace I feel right now in this moment transcends all peace. Nothing, alcohol addiction, none of it. God took it all away from me by prayer and petition and casting the anxieties onto him. He is the ultimate creator. And my testimony, is just really touches who I am as a person. And during that time, God loved me regardless. God still loves you. God loved me regardless. He knew the things I did. He knew the things I said. He knew where my mind was at, and he still loved me. He waited until it was the right time. Like, it's just, yeah, his love will forever be. And I'm going to make more videos about it. And just kind of talking about my routine and how my life has changed now. I just wanted to talk just about my testimony. I know it's longer than what I said it was going to be, but I really hope this video helps somebody. And please leave comments below. And I'm definitely going to make more videos about just my routine in God and what my relationship is like with him now. Thank you so much for watching.